Ming Dynasty brick like this is about 13 kilograms, 25, 27 pounds. An enormous effort was required to get the material up to its point of use. And I've never actually tried to carry one of these up there. I guess it's the only way to find out how difficult or easy it was. Let's go. There are no logistical records detailing the basics of wall building, how the material was moved, whether they used animals, whether they used levers. And the only explanation seems to be that at the time they thought in future no one is going to be remotely interested in how something as mundane as a border wall was constructed. Oh, finally, one brick, more than 5 minutes. Whew.
But the mountain passes weren't the only weak spot in China's defenses. On the coast east of Beijing, there's a flat strip more than 6 miles wide. Ideal country for warriors on horseback, another invasion highway, and another major challenge for General Qin Shi Huangdi. Here, his defenses would have to start below the waterline, or invaders would simply go around them. His solution was to extend the Great Wall more than 60 feet into the sea at Shanhaiguan. It's a massive construction that sits on a natural reef and huge stone slabs. Like other key points in Qin Shi Huangdi's new wall, Shanhaiguan was part of an interlocking system. The Great Wall's eastern end was a complex of 5 forts. A series of walls, gates, and fortifications created an impenetrable barrier across the entrance to China, called the First Pass Under Heaven. Ming engineers quarried local stone to reinforce existing walls and support new ones. At Shanhaiguan, quarrying still goes on today. A better solution was standard-sized bricks joined with mortar, though the color of the mortar gave rise to an especially grim legend.
It was long believed that the mortar between the bricks on the Ming Dynasty wall was made of human bones. That gave it its white color. In fact, the whiteness comes from the burnt lime from limestone. But it actually contains another rather unusual ingredient, but definitely not human bones.
To Chinese, the secret ingredient was anything but unusual. The emperor's engineers found that the high starch content of rice helped mortar bond firmly to the bricks. Centuries later, the strength of this unlikely mix is obvious. In places where wind and rain have worn away the wall, the mortar has outlasted the bricks. The sturdy Ming walls helped keep towns like Shanhaiguan safe for generations. But General Qin Shi Huangdi knew better than to rely on bricks and mortar for protection. Just as important were the men who guarded the walls and the weapons they carried. The deadly combination of strong fortifications, well-trained soldiers, and powerful weapons would always give defenders the edge.
The Chinese also had repeating and multiple bolt crossbows so that they could fire several shots in a minute from the repeating bolt. They also had larger versions capable of ranges of 1,000 yards or more, which were known to take down 6 men and their horses at once.
Young Fu Shi is a bowmaker, like every man in his family for generations. He still makes crossbows, just like those that defended the Great Wall against the Mongols. Nomads out on the steppes couldn't make the complicated trigger mechanisms. so the Chinese had a head start in the arms race. The crossbow was the AK-47 of its day, lethal at short range and with a fast reload. The semi-automatic version fired 10 shots in 20 seconds.
A typical defense of a wall or a city would require 2 or 3 million arrows at one time, so you can imagine the capacity that was required. The nomads were always at a disadvantage in terms of weapons. They primarily relied on bows and fairly light crossbows. China had a whole range of weapons, and once gunpowder was invented, they had arsenals to produce explosives.
And with the advantage of height and a clear line of sight, they could hardly miss. General Qin Shi Huangdi had thought of everything. His men held every bit of high ground. He'd interlinked his defenses, so troops in one tower could defend their comrades in another. And if attackers made it onto the wall, the defenders could fight them every step of the way. He'd designed this web of defenses to do one thing: channel attackers into a free fire zone where his men could slaughter them.
The wall is built, garrisoned, decades of peace, and then finally the moment of truth. Attackers arrive, and what a shock lies in store. The Great Wall, a building the likes of which they could never have imagined. This is the killing zone. This is where all hell would be let loose. From the wall itself, the release of arrows and cannon fire. Down in the valleys, more surprises, landmines, ground thunder, iron spikes to lame the horses.
With such impregnable defenses and overwhelming firepower, China should have been secure. Who could have predicted the world's most formidable fortifications would fall without firing a shot? During the 14th and 15th centuries, China's Ming Dynasty expanded and modernized the Great Wall to protect Beijing from marauding Mongols. The most elaborate system of defenses ever built. Confident their capital was safe at last, the Ming emperors turned their attention to another problem: China's far western border. Here, the Great Wall ended in one of the emptiest deserts in the world, where cargoes of treasure, silk and spices passed east and west along the fabled Silk Route. The caravans paid hefty taxes to the imperial coffers and made easy prey for nomad bandits. They needed the best protection money could buy. And that meant building new and massive fortifications between the mountains and the desert, at a place called Jiayuguan. The Jiayuguan fort would have to be incredibly strong. In this isolated place, a besieged garrison might have to hold out for weeks before help arrived.